Okay, this is one you've probably seen before on me, so I'm not gonna listen to it for the most part. I still believe in this hot bar, but this is a hot pile of garbage. It doesn't do anything. Do stuff button, just me being a butthead in there. But what was important is a little bit of this. This Dalport Daily is super important because I can actually hit something, and given the form that I don't have to worry about any of this stuff being in, it's all well taken care of and addressed for you. That makes this super nice. Because again, hopefully I do press it on here. I talk about the Dalport Daily. Apparently I just get pounding off at the pie hole. I was having a good time. I did skip it, but I want to get back to this anyways. When I'm doing this game theory, this process of what I'm talking about, there's a given score to what this is on Memo. Technically, this is a one-line write-out about a score that basically gets you to a point where it starts to open up into new windows, and it gets a little bit more complicated after that point in time. But basically, all of that will fit on one prompt screen when you hit the play button. All this will come out. It'll pump out the Dalport Daily on a line, and then the rest of it. And it's not too bad as long as you're staying in the concept of what you're dealing with. But that's not really the type of that's page. I really don't know if that's the one I need in this HTLM version, or if it's the Java or C++. I still have no idea as far as why a game score. Like, I don't even know how to register a point here when there's plenty of points to be. As far as a game developer, I know it's not a fancy blow-up shoot 'em up game, and in the way it never will be, but there's a way that a score, well, definitely to the timing, that this is a timed event. I'd imagine a very good programmer, Code Bullet, 3B1B, Ben Eater, something like this, as far as where we cut off natural systems, is a very specific timed event. And the time with gramming errors or is a score base, but not one that defies from a passing grade. Technically, you succeeded with no errors. And there's a line of tasks that you have to achieve that are nested as far as this project, because we want to create the Dalport Daily. We want to create a web page using HTLM that describes all the functions and has on start, the click functions, subscribe features, recruit buttons. Here they may not be practical. Here they're probably just a click into a screen that goes nowheres. And for all intents and purposes, that's the point you're looking for, because much like the process, it's nested in another process where it's easy to find. And it's very based to its core system. And for the game developers, that's a different type of score. I'd imagine some Q learning, as far as if I had calculus, some kids, as far as the test or where they, how many of this in Memo they'll take to the face before, they just click out or something like that. Then what did I do to maintain viewerships as far as Memo's ability to train you practically in there? And I'm sure there's books about it somewhere, so there's got to be some research. Which brings us back over here. All of this, meanwhile, you need to be able to program this. This is something that you should achieve for, not just click on some window for. I'm sure there will always be a text editor. That's not my point. And most likely you would still have to get it patent to go out there, put $9.99.99 on it for the price of it, or give it away for free. However that works. But most people are going to go to the common text editors. Your Java, your C++, your whatever that's going to be. But you can see how subtle differences in that can make big differences, whether it be the GPU, the DPU, or the TPU. This time-based function here at its largest magnitude is a TPU. The full test there is a very different grade, but there's nothing between quantum mechanics, classical mechanics, and celestial orbitals and black holes, subatomic. some of the ranges that go in there. Every once in a while there's some barrier, every once in a while there's some barrier, and every once in a while there's a barrier as far as an object that is, a gas or something. But as far as what FMA is concerned, there's no reason to debug it within certain parallels. The limited number of problems that could come off from that sector with how the standard model is operated towards what it is, because it's always three. It's always 1, 2, or 3. This is the heading in the body by coding language, but it's not until the main section gets into those other Java languages, an intuitive process, the console, the context, the app, something like that, that already embedded it into the library somewheres, that, again, without having the training for, you're not really determining a button in the same way, and then why that button is important for whatever reason, because it's still the basic seed element that you need. I need a page, I need that button, I need to change the button parameters. Instead of doing that every time you stick it into that file, which comes down, and that's a point. How again, I don't have the case studies, and myself running individual lines is not going to be the processor that I need to handle that gigabytes worth of information that is probably relative. Beating a drum hard here. I want to make sure that you hear it. I'm a pretty smart guy. Like when I said, when it comes to these stone mills, this is pretty good stuff. I know 3B, 1B does the math, and I would love to do just pure math in that way. There's a lot that can be done with it. But when I say, I'll hand me a Saw Jaguar program, that's a pretty analog piece of equipment, where this one is not. It's fairly analog in terms of what it is, and it's certainly limited to, it can't really think outside those lines. And the chips in the manuals for what it does is not hard triangulation to figure out in terms of causal, especially when you're living down there pretty frequently. After the first week or two, they don't give you books until after a while. But again, there's always a game score to this. For me, the bosses messed this up. The bosses should never, ever, I feel, be in this, because it's a different type of program. I've never come into a video where they're like, well, this is the most common. You'll have tread and you'll have pattern. This is not actually the most common thing you'll put to this saw. These other saws with different types of systems are basically Java and Python to one another. But and in both, I've been very good with the game theory. Figure it out, get the score. That maps the zenith against other guys that's in the room that does calculus. The floor foundations, torch techniques, skid steer, day patterns, and it kind of loosely builds it off itself. But that's trait to anybody that's in there that has tread and pattern limits, or some kind of body and heading, or sub-factor of that. They definitely do, but they definitely don't have it worked out, and it's an absolute physical reason with a computer line background where you can put all this to work. I mean, there for you guys, it's going to be tilt that thing around, spin around her side, and don't worry about the digital stuff as long as you're able to do that inside of there. The ones and zeros about the trade triangle for that piece of rock right there to what's left over, who's sweat equity in there, is a pretty important subject. And again, obviously, when you look inside of there, I messed up the heading name. It's not clean. I'll forget about it. I still can't delete stuff. And again, I've been around a lot of these. So I wanted to just hammer home on that. Game theory here. Find a way to make it a game to a cowboy like me. And you have solved the problem. Honestly, you have. There's no reason I can't integrate that 18 to 80 character. We're not here for the school system. We're not here. If we are, we're here for the C plus on that variable of what school students are putting out, because it's got to be a huge volume. Again, I'm a real smart guy, and there's no real keys or codes or manuals where I've ever seen the dictionary of terms where this is the dictionary of HLM terms. It's most likely in a digital space that's like the programming and hooking it up to your HP Droid OS system, a nightmare as far as which operating system you need to do. And again, that's another game theory right now, a different form here, a REIT standard of research element. I can't say all of them are going to be worth it, right? And you're trying to determine the value of a person doing data mining, and this data mining is a different form without it having simulated. Once we get the physical technique down, we can run some simulations about it and argue the Zelda game's route needs to be more comprehensive between steps. But there's no reason, especially with this out here, that Game Boy game couldn't be just, screens and turns. Totally possible to do a water treatment plant, or how to, and we don't have acid, but doing the drop test in some video game would be awesome. And that being the theory. So, catch you on the next one.